Hey, just wanted to speak to the leader for a second out there that is wrestling through, we'll call it survivor's guilt. All right. As a former Marine, I've had to live through seeing life lost on the battlefield and walking away from that, questioning, is there something more I could have done? Could I have prepared them better? Could I have been there for them? And I've known people as well to take their own life. And both examples are extreme examples of the effects that the brokenness of this world has on people. And the brokenness, really, I need you to be reminded, is sin. It is the big picture. It is the problem with our world. It's not politics. It's not depression. It's not COVID-19. It's none of those things. It's all those things that are names we've put to the brokenness of this world, which in itself is sin. And in itself, there's only one answer for. So for the leader out there who's struggling, and let me replace the word leader and give some real titles to that title. It's teammate, brother or sister, aunt, uncle, parent, grandparent. It's boss, manager. It's coach, teacher, principal, right? On and on the list goes for leaders out there who are struggling with what more could I have done to prevent that. I hope this in some ways comforts you that that is not a burden for you to carry. Matter of fact, it was a burden that was certainly existent in the world, and that's why Jesus came. That's why he had to drink a cup that was not for us to drink. He died so that we wouldn't have to. He died to defeat the eternal sting of death. That sting is gone. But the reality of it is sin is still in the world. It is still the reason why we have the brokenness and the depravity and all the things that we struggle with in this world. So for the leader that's struggling with this, let me encourage you with this, and that's that if you were to look at the life of Jesus on this earth, the 3 years specifically that we get to read about in the Bible, he had 12 disciples that walked with him. One of those fell to the temptation of sin and turned his back on Jesus. And what's so significant about that story for me is this is not an individual who showed up, let's just say in the sports context, showed up to practice once a day for 5 days a week for a period of a few months for that season, and then we'll see you next year, coach. Right? This isn't a kid who showed up to school for 9 months out of the year, but then took the summer break, and you may or may not see that kid again next year because of transfer, you or them, or they rise a grade or something like that, right? I mean, this is a man who followed Jesus. Didn't attend a practice, didn't follow a principal, didn't wasn't just at home, followed Jesus, God in the flesh, the Messiah, for 3 years, day and night. Listened to everything that he had to say directly, not things that we read about that was only what was captured for our Bibles, but everything he said, everything he did, saw his power firsthand, knew exactly who this man was. And yet, even in the presence of Jesus for 3 years intimately, fell to the temptation of sin and made a really bad decision. One that he couldn't take back, one he couldn't get over the regret of, and one that actually resulted in him taking his own life. So for the leader that wonders, what more could I have done? My thought is on this is that if Jesus himself, in close proximity to somebody, experienced what it looks like for somebody to be overcome by sin and make a bad decision, I mean, what hope do we have that we would do any better at that? So what then? What we have to do is be reminded that our responsibility is not to try to do more, but to try to connect them to the person who did enough. God's grace is sufficient, and we have to continue to rely on his grace. The reality of it is this is a tough season we're in. COVID-19 has effects on every single one of us that sort of begin with a rooted idea of depression and then mature into other things, other decisions we make, other ways we feel because of the isolation, right? The quarantine, isolation, it's just different words we apply to how true it is that we have been cut off from a lot of things that really matter to us. And if we don't continue to pursue filling those little world-sized pieces with something that only can be replaced by the size of God and his power and his might and his love and his mercy and his grace, if we don't replace those things with him in an even more aggressive way, then don't be surprised then when you're continuing to be overcome by what's going on around us. It's easy. I'm just as victim to it as the rest of you. I make bad decisions. I say and think and do dumb things from time to time because my behavior is being affected by my surroundings and not my Savior. So I hope that for the leader who's struggling, I hope this encourages you a little bit, puts things into a correct perspective, takes the weight off of you and keeps it on the one who says that come to him because his burden is light.